Let me walk you through my over the board tournament experience. First time, just super nervous, but like sharp. Mentally just sharp because I was like, I'm so nervous. I need to channel these nerves into being sharp on the board and on calculations. Second tournament, before I even walk in, let me warm up in the car. So I started doing puzzles. I couldn't get past 11 on Puzzle Rush because I was just like so dead from the day of work that I couldn't calculate simple like 500 rated puzzles. And I was thinking to myself, I'm about to be playing 30-minute games and I can't calculate a 500 rated puzzle in 15 seconds. So, this might not go so well. But we walked in anyway and we made some blunders. We made some blunders immediately. And yeah, tough. Which I think, with that being said, I should probably get into the game. Let's get into the first game. I played a 13-year-old kid. I walk up, we use his board, and I go with e4. And after e4, he goes e5, and I was super excited. I was like, great, we get a Vienna. And after knight c3, I was like, ooh, come on, give me bishop c5. And instead of giving me bishop c5, he goes, okay, knight f6. So I was like, okay, I have to be solid. I don't get to play anything crazy like queen g5 and go for this pawn and the rook and whatever nonsense, right? We can't play the copycat Vienna. Instead, I just play d3. We're good to go, normal stuff. He plays this, I don't know, just to prevent a pin at some point, right? So I went ahead and said, look, I'll still play like a Vienna-like structure. At some point, just jump the knight out to f3 and go from there, which is exactly what happens. He brings his bishop out, which I thought was a little bit weird because I just thought, wait a second, if I take, doesn't he just have double pawns? Like, what's the point of this? And even if I take now he really just has double isolated pawns. So I thought, okay, I'm good to go right now. Like, there's nothing wrong with this. And then I just played a3. My coach Brentino over there in the chat, he says that a3 just really doesn't do a whole lot. Not sure what the point is because he didn't think that this had any real threat. So he just wasn't really worried about it. And I was just thinking, okay, like I've gotten into many positions where I have doubled C pawns, which yes does open up the B file, but at the same time it can be a little bit annoying. So I just figured, you know what, let's just avoid it. That's why I played a3. But now I know apparently castles is just a little bit simpler and more solid, or bishop e3. Both of those develop a piece or get the king to safety. All that's the same. I think I did look at castling, but the reason why I didn't play is because I thought he could just get a free move, develop, and I would have to waste a move moving the king. But what does it matter, really, right? So it's all good. Anyway, a3, he develops his bishop, presumably to castle. I develop my bishop because I was thinking at this point, well, I don't know. Like, if he had gotten his bishop here and we had traded here, I absolutely would castle short. But at this point, I wanted to keep it open if I wanted to castle either way, especially if he castled short. I thought that I might be able to create a pawn storm at some point. And he does castle short, so I started doing exactly as I planned. Prepping a pawn storm, kind of just pushing and seeing what would happen from here. And again, queen d2 sets up all this. I was contemplating for a long time sacking the bishop and just trying to get in here. But I wasn't too sure. I literally spent like 3 minutes on a couple different moves looking at if this worked. And 3 minutes might include like some of his time as well. So honestly, probably like 6 to 8 minutes total were spent on like calculating, okay, what's all the responses if this and yeah, I don't know, just all sorts of stuff, chat. If you're really afraid of the doubled C pawns, then just meet bishop b4 with bishop d2. Yeah, the bishop, the dark choice bishop. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, I'm not saying it was logical. I'm just saying that was my my point at the time. So then, anyway, I go into this pawn storm, right? Thinking, okay, I can just march my way forward, which apparently he can just sack. And the reason why he can sack is because after takes, well, guess what? Knight's hanging, right? So this is one way where I just was belligerently pawn storming it down. I was like, this is a 13-year-old kid. I can just pawn storm him and blow him to pieces. But in reality, I was just leaving myself open to tactics all over the place. But it's okay. Instead of taking the G pawn, he took my E pawn. And at this point, I made another blunder. I said, okay, let me take back with the knight. But in reality, what I forgot, I knew that this was going to be taken. But what I forgot was that, oh, like pawns can take pieces. And I was like, oh, my queen's over here. And like this is hanging. So that's why I took here. But in reality, chat, if I take here, if he were to take my queen because his queen is hanging, like he literally can't take the knight. Because then I just take the queen and we're golden, right? And even if he takes my bishop, oh, okay, well now I'm fine. Like, and he's really running out of spots to go. So, yeah, after queen takes, my knight can just go backwards, and we're good to go. There's no like real issue here. But instead, I decided to take back with a knight, which goes back to even versus taking back with a pawn, which is now +3. So right here already, I had it, and it slipped through my hands. I just dropped it out of my pocket, let the winning position go, and of course he takes with the rook on f3. I'm down a pawn, but he still has double isolated pawns. So I was like, okay, it's a little uncomfortable, not the worst thing in the world. I think even here I was still debating this, but either way, I think at this point, I was starting to get worried about the rooks doubling up on the F file. So instead of, waiting for this to get obliterated over here, which doesn't really work. I don't know, chat. Like, I feel like over the board, I just create these threats in my mind for my opponent and think that they're more dangerous than they really are. And so I was like, I want to get rid of this being an issue. So I long castled, which was not the greatest move, but it's okay. Short castle apparently here, short castle is still better than any sort of plan to long castle, but it's okay. Which short castle, right, puts a rook on f1, protecting the knight. So not even needing to take back and here to save the knight. Like literally just do this, and after castling, like even if he wants to trade or whatever, we could even bring double the rooks on the f file. Just more ideas, but it's okay. So long castle, he jumps into the square. I thought he was gonna play this. I thought it'd be annoying. Just didn't know what to do. Like I was like, I need to be careful because I could get forked. I literally thought to myself, at this point, I could get forked. But I also am trying to get an idea of attacking. Do I want to push the pawn? Do I want to sack? What do I want to do, right? And I was thinking, look, if he puts his queen here, this pawn gets pinned, and it's a royal fork. So let's make sure we avoid that, but let's see if we're faster. I don't know. There's some idea I had here where I wanted to just open up the king and have open files and bring a rook, and even if we trade off rooks, I was going to be just totally fine. And instead, what happened was I pushed, thinking that I'd be faster, and he moved and totally ignored it and said, Queen C6, pinning my pawn to my king. If you remember, I literally just thought the knight arrived to d4. I need to be careful of knight b3. And instead of seeing that he did that, I had such big tunnel vision that I thought, I'm faster. Here's my attack. I'm faster. And then, I definitely got hit with that royal fork, chat. This is 100% the biggest blunder that I've played in any over-the-board tournament, and got wrecked with with this royal fork. The pawn is pinned, and I lost my queen. And I thought, do I resign? I still got like some chance here, right? Like I have something. Like if I can pin this pawn, I can do something. And that's exactly what I went for. Tried to pin it. I did not want to play rook hg1 because then he just takes and threatening to take my pawn. And I figured I needed my pawn in some sort of threat to try and promote it at one point or another. And he just comes in, protects it, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that works. But after the next move, I thought that I was gonna start having a plan. I was gonna try and trade this off, and if he were to take my bishop, I could take back, forking him back, and at least I could win a rook out of this. And then I would be 2 rooks, a knight versus a rook and a queen. I was like, okay, we're in business, right? Like, if he falls for this, we're in business. Like, just for example, if he takes, and he takes, you know, I was like, we're fine. We're totally fine. Guess what, chat? Is there an issue with this position? Let me know if you see an issue. There is a clear problem with this position, which is what I calculated. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, wait a second. This is a huge problem. What? Oh, at the end of my calculation, 2 rooks and a knight versus queen and rook. Oh, we're okay. No, absolutely not. We're not okay, chat. But honestly, this whole line didn't even happen because after bishop g5, he didn't even take. He protected the bishop, and I was thinking, now I still need an idea, which my idea here was I'll take. When he takes back, I give a check, and I thought there was some way if he takes, then I was going to give a check and win the rook. So I jump in. Give him the check. I want his queen. I want his king to take my h-pawn, and then I'm going to fork him yet again in my calculations, not in real life. And then I was going to be able to take here, and instead, he used his rook to take my knight. And it was at this point, I just said, "Look, I just totally missed that. I am down a full-blown queen. GG." I will say he did take 2 minutes to play rook takes f6. He was calculating for 2 minutes, and I was like, beautiful, I got this guy. I'm right back in here. We're good to go. And then after like 2 minutes of calculating, he just took, and we both laughed, and I shook his hand, and I was like, okay, good stuff. Oh, man. We move on to round 2, okay? Round 2, I'm playing with the black pieces. He goes with d4, and I was like, great, this is perfect. I get to play some King's Indian defense and prove Brentino, my coach, proud that I'm learning something. But then he plays bishop f4. I'm like, okay, this isn't like true King's Indian anymore. This is more just playing in London. But I still go in King's Indian. I don't play d5, which you can play d5, c5. I've tried that a couple times, but he's not going to play some sharp line where I need to figure out what's going on. I just had one idea and one idea only, and that was to build up to defend the e5 square, because I know that in the London, the e5 square is very important for white to be playing solidly. They need to defend the e5 square, and if black can push through the e5 square safely, typically it's a good position. And so at some point, I said, okay, when I move my knight, I will have 1, 2, 3 defenders with a bishop, rook, and the pawn. So I said, okay, at this point, let me jump my knight out. The bishop should move back. I'll just take it and then shove the pawn forward, and we're in business. So after exactly that happens, we are good to go, and I push e5. I wasn't too sure what this does. Maybe he's just trying to long castle or short castle, but either way, I figured, okay, I'm fine here, and I said, all right, I'll take, and obviously this pawn's pinned. So I thought he was going to take back with his pawn. Don't know, chat. I have no idea. But I said, okay, what am I doing? Actually, he just takes back with the knight. So yeah, that happened. I have no idea. This was like another moment of just like straight beginner blindness. Like, I'm happy he didn't take back here, because I probably would have taken with the bishop, thinking that was so smart, like pinning with this pin pawn and whatever. But yeah, so he took back with the knight. And after bishop g4... Brentino thinks, oh, well, you know, he can't really castle along anyway. And black was totally fine with a bishop pair. So he didn't like this idea. But to be honest, my idea was I was trying to instigate f3. I thought I was brilliant. I was like, look, I'm making a move just to make his pawn structure worse. Because after he pushes this, I was going to give it check, and then here, and then back up, and we got a developed bishop, and he's down a pawn, and he had to block or whatever, and I was like, big brain. Totally big brain moment. Like, let's go. And then he just jumps his knight in. So I was like, oh, I just helped him develop even his knight to a better square. His knight's now defending his knight. This is just cemented, even though that this is pinned. And yeah, so whatever big brain I thought I had, it just shrunk back down to normal size. And he did long castle. And after long castles, I figured, look, let's go into something a little bit more aggressive, because now at this point, if he takes, I just take his rook. When he takes back, I just take back with literally any of these three pieces that are still controlling e5. From here, he plays rook e1. Okay. So Brantino's saying after long castles, I could have just played c5 and just kind of just pawn storm down this way. c5, d5, and knight c6 is pleasant for black. But anyway, what actually happened in the game was here at this point, I went for not a real fork. I just figured, look, I can take with check, so then they have to take back. And then from at this point, I'll connect my queen and bishop and go from here. But he jumps in, so I was thinking, okay, how do I deal with this? Well, obviously, like, he's got this threat, right? This pawn is weak, so I figured I need to do something. I push h5. Apparently, h6 is better because it's still holding the fort down, but it's also kicking the knight out. That's apparently just a lot better, but it's okay. I could try to start attacking and go from there, because at some point I wanted to jump right here. I wanted to say, let me go ahead and attack his queen or pin here, but obviously this knight is defending that square. So I did a long think, and I said, let me go c5. I won't take immediately, but there's all sorts of other stuff. I'll pin, and then I'll take with one or the other. And so I went. He did move to the square, and I was like, all right, well, at this point, I can try and pin the piece. I definitely can't take just yet, but I said, look, I realized instead of pinning, why don't I just advance my pawn? If he takes, I have a fork available. Always looking for those forks, chat. Okay. To Brantino's point, instead of playing c4, supposedly I can just take here, because if he takes back, then at this point his queen has been deflected. I just went a knight for a rook. But what's the difference here? Because then aren't I just down material? This is crushing for black. The two bishops are going to cut through his position. Oh, especially when you have such big attacking prospects with him, right? Because they're seeing everything. So going back to what actually happened in the game, I figured at this point I have a beautiful fork and we're good to go, right? How could I resist playing the fork, right, chat? After I did the fork, I was like, okay, he'll back up, he'll do something, right? And he plays queen d4, and I just was like, oh, he held his piece on d4 for like 3 seconds, and I was like, I honestly was like, please don't let go. Like, I kind of didn't want the game to end like that, but he let go, and I was like, okay, I'll just take it. And then I took, and I was trying to simplify. He avoided it, and from here, I just it was pretty easy here. He did fork me, but I was like, it's totally fine, and he fell for it. I just came in and gave him 8. So that's how this one ended. It was a good position, and then he just blundered like in full. So it went from slightly advantageous position for black to just mate in 2, and we're good to go. Yeah, so at this point, if we go back to our Excel sheet, we have recovered. We lost to the 13-year-old, and then we went, boom. This guy doesn't know his London, and he got wrecked. So there we go. A little bit of backstory here, okay? I played this guy in the first tournament I ever played, over the board ever. I was definitely in a losing position. He was about to just blow me off the board, but I had a desperation play to just attack on the flank side, and he couldn't like coordinate his pieces quickly enough. He could have, but he couldn't figure out how to do it. So I broke through on the flank side and ultimately like won one pawn, and then he didn't defend accurately, and I was able to break through and eventually promote another pawn and win. So we had history already. He's the nicest guy. He's got to be like in his 60s. He is so nice. But we had history already where the last game we played, I was in a losing position. He knew it, I knew it, and I just went belligerently pawn storming up the flank side and was able to save the game, which is a concept that Brentino taught me. Honestly, very helpful for all that coaching already. In this game, I got to play with the white pieces. E4. He does play knight f6, which I did not know because last time he played white. So I said, okay, I'll just push e5. Like, I'll just chase the knight around, right? That's fine. And I know that d4 is a move here. I just thought, you know what? Let's get this knight moving. And I was already thinking, look, if he like short castles or something, like maybe I rotate this bishop around and like have this bishop just on a strong diagonal, and you know we're good to go. Pre-moving knight f6 IRL 5-head. Yeah, you know, that's literally, I was like, I looked at him and I was just like, is that really what he plays, or is this just some confusion? But I was like, the man is 60 years old. 60 years old. There's no way that he hasn't played enough chess to know what his openings are, right? So this is why I went for. He jumped back. And we were good to go. I end up saying, look, I'll just jump in with this and have a threat here if he really just does nothing. So, yeah, eventually I castled. I'm not joking, chat. I really, really, really wanted to just jump in here. I didn't know if this was good or bad. Computer thinks it's fine. It's an inaccuracy, apparently. To just jump in with a knight. It's a waste of a tempo. Yeah, chat, you are correct. Totally correct. All of you guys are right. I did not play it. Instead, I just castled. I was like, all right, let's just be solid. And at this point, I said, look, if he trades it off, I mean, you know, he's got to deal with some stuff immediately. I didn't think it was the worst thing in the world for me. It's already saying +1 for white. So I thought this was a good position. I have 2 things developed. He's kind of got this really awkward pawn structure and not really sure what's going on. So he blocks me out, and I was like, all right, well, let's just develop. I probably could have developed all these other pieces first, but it's all right. And at this point, I was just trying to consolidate the center. Apparently, I'm missing out on tactics because after takes, let's see, takes, I could have come in this way. And then this, but I mean, he can always move. Okay, right here, I thought about taking for like 5 minutes. I spent 5 minutes out of 30 minutes looking at taking. But computer actually says it's fine. I was just worried because what happens now? Like, aren't I just stuck? Like, how do I get out of this? Computer says E takes D6, but after this, how do I still don't understand how I get out. You know, I don't know, chat. I just felt uncomfortable playing this. Yeah, but they can't attack your queen without releasing your queen. Yeah, that is definitely true, which I did not consider at the moment. See, this is what I'm saying. It was a long day at work. I was not in the mood to wait, yeah, this is literally the same day of dropping all my food on the floor and twirling my face mask, like catapulting it into the trash can. This is the same day. So, you know, that's why I was like, it's not the day to play, you know, knight g5 going for some fork idea. It's not the day to play queen takes b7, okay? And so instead I tried to play solid. Okay, and then after knight d2, apparently the e5 pawn is just hanging. He has 1, 2, 3. I just have 1, 2. That's why the computer just keeps saying, black, what are you doing? Please take, please take. But he doesn't take. Instead, he pulls out with knight a5, attacking the bishop. And instead of letting him take, I just rotated back because I figured, all right, 2 bishops, you're going to look pretty powerful in a little bit here. And after f5, of course I thought about en passant. How can you not think about en passant? But I resisted, even though apparently it's the top engine move. Instead, let me go ahead and play g4, which I guess last night I was just all about playing g4. For some reason, I thought that if he took, I was able to take, which is exactly what happened. And then at this point, I said, let me jump in the knight here, and he builds a battery. Okay, so it's defended, but I was still thinking, look, I can make progress by pushing f4, so that's why I ended up playing. I just remember vividly, I was thinking about trying to pin this, and I was thinking, look, if I can play bishop b3 and take, that's a free queen. But unfortunately, he kind of foiled that plan with jumping the knight in because it's defended by this knight. So what I said was, look, I'll just go ahead and open this up. I took, and I was like, now I got my idea. I'm going to have this. I'm going to push, or I'm going to take this pawn, which looks like a sacrifice. Thought it was going to be a sacrifice. Yeah, no, Chexy, you're correct. Knight c4 literally does nothing except blocks my one pet idea. Like, my tunnel vision was like, oh, well, you're preventing me from, you know, taking this pawn and pinning the queen and winning the queen. So instead, let me still build around that idea. And I thought, oh, I was gonna be so smart and sacrifice this knight and take. And so I pre-moved. As I came as close as possible to pre-moving as you can in an over the board IRL chess game. And as soon as he pushed, I was like, perfect, I got this. Jumped in with a knight. And I was like, when he takes, I'll be able to take the e6 pawn. Oh, I can't take the pawn anymore. I was like, oh, wait, why did I do that? Chat, this is the worst thing I was like, oh my God. Like, first game, I lose to a 13-year-old while getting royally forked. And then the second game, my opponent both has gambits. And then this game, I just like straight up blunder a knight. Like full on blunder it. And beforehand, I was up +2. Like for most of these positions, I was up +2. Or at one point, I was +6 because what happens at +6? I just jump in with knight g5 and I'm hitting the queen and I'm good to go. Instead, we get into this nonsense here. Is this game completely fried? Chexy? We don't know. Yeah, I'm down a piece, but like we're not grandmasters, right? We'll find. I'll figure something out. So what I end up doing here is I take with a rook. I was debating if I want to take with a queen or rook. Engine likes queen, but I was like, I don't want to trade queens after going down a piece. Like, what is happening? So I tried to take here, and fortunately, he jumped in with his knight. That makes no sense. Like, what is this? And of course, I was hanging on to my pet idea of this pin for so long that I was still like, beautiful. Knight e4 accomplishes nothing. It looks like it's defended. I just take, okay? We just take it, and he doesn't realize what's going on, and he takes back, and I'm like, we're good. We're good to go, chat, okay? We got the tick tactics in store. And we are on a roll, okay? For that move, I deserve this, okay? And he takes, and I'm like, beautiful. Paid actor. Oh my God. No. I'm telling you, chat, this guy, you know what? I don't know. He just has a proclivity of like having a winning position against me and then losing, which has only happened twice. But after this, it's still not like, yeah, I'm winning, but like it's not like so clear, right? So I play bishop e3. Not sure why. I just didn't have a better plan. I was like, let me blockade this and bring the rook and then go from there. That was my idea. At this point, he jumps in. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, this was kind of dumb. So I move back, and he comes forward. And I'm like, oh, oops, this is also kind of dumb. So I moved back, and I was like, now I will definitely blockade him. There's no way around it. Then I realized, oh, wait, shoot. Two attackers, one defender. So I was like, oh, that's not good. But this is an error because, boom, queen check, it's a fork, and we are good to go. So after this, ultimately what ended up happening, I took the fork, of course, and he tried to push this, and I was like, that's not an issue. I'm going to attack your rook, and what are you going to do about it? He moves back, attacking my queen. I was like, okay, let's shuffle around. I mean, how are you going to deal with this? He does that, and I'm like, okay, well, now I'm good. And I'm like, wait, this doesn't do anything. I now have two attackers. So I move my king here. I'm like, after I protect my bishop, what's he going to do? And he plays h6 because I think he was thinking about rook e3, but obviously he would just get back rank mated. So instead he played h6. So this is him having tunnel vision. And I was like, okay, thank you, sir. And then he was like, okay, I'm not going to trade, right? Which is fine. But I'm like, no, let's trade. And he's like, no, let's not trade. And I was like, okay, well, then I'll just take your rook. He says, no, let's not take the rook. And I'm like, no, we will trade. So eventually we trade. And then I'm like, all right, I'm still coming in. It's another mini fork. And we go from there. And I win, take advantage of the fork. I push over here. He tries to come in, take all my pawns. I say, no, like, I don't like that. Okay, so then I pushed h5. I'm not going to lie, chat. I played this, and he took, and I played here. I don't know if... Okay, yeah. So I just said, screw it. Like, how am I ever going to lose this with 4 pawns versus 2 and a bishop on each side, right? I figured there's no way. So I was like, okay, I'll just take, like, whatever. Like, I'll take the queen. We're good to go. Push. I stopped recording my moves, but essentially he just tried to move forward, and my idea was going to be to like get to this square and trade off the bishops. But obviously he could actually prevent that. So ultimately I was just like, okay, like I got my king over here, and I eventually went bishop to b8, and I tried to collect this pawn. He started pushing them, but eventually what happened was I got my bishop on the b6 square, and I got these pawns over, and I ultimately checkmated him. So that's good stuff. Sacking the queen there was a bit overdoing it. You think so? I mean, I probably honestly could have done a whole lot of things. Let's just win. I don't know. I had like 5 minutes on the clock, so I was like, oh, I'd rather just like worry about pushing pawns. I don't know, Chad. That was my way of dealing with it. I don't know. Just let me have this one. With some relatively decent in-game technique, I was able to just convert and plant a bishop over here and shove my pawns forward. That was the final game of the tournament, and I was able to walk out of there with 2 wins and 1 loss after starting with a 1 loss against a 13-year-old kid. First 2 over-the-board tournaments, went 2-1 in both of them. I definitely feel like I could have played better, but you know what? We're learning. A lot of it is board vision. I think the biggest lesson learned is just board vision. It's different playing online where you can draw arrows or even just see in a very compact space the entire board versus looking over the board and the board's like this big. It's totally different. So that's definitely a lesson learned. Probably need to take my actual chessboard and do more exercises rather than only playing online. All in all, it was a lot of fun. If you don't play in-person tournaments, there's no need to, but if you enjoy chess, it's definitely worth trying at least once, because it's definitely not something I would want to do all the time, but something that I find very fun. And if you do play, let me know what your experiences were like in the first few tournaments that you played. And I would love to hear your story and kind of compare how you progressed with what I'm going through right now. With that said, happy learning, everyone, and we'll see you in the next video. Oh, what's funny is I was talking to a friend, and I told them that I lost to a 13-year-old, and they were like, oh, he must have been like a child prodigy. I'm like, no, absolutely not. This guy was just, he beat a very, average, or really, let's be honest, below average 26-year-old who's past his prime in terms of learning chess. So, like the fact that he's 13, 13's a little late. He ain't no chess prodigy at age 13, okay?